in the lobby. So we're just going to spend the next 2 to 3 minutes giving people time to connect and also to let them in before we'll get started. Thank you for being with us and thanks for your patience for the next couple of minutes. Okay, well, the number of pings that I'm hearing has slowed down a little bit. So we've given 5 minutes for people to connect. So I'm going to go ahead and start, and we can catch people up through the Q&A and other parts of the conversation later on. So good afternoon, or good evening rather, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. My name is Sadia Rahman. I'm Head of Arts at the British Council in Bangladesh, and I am based in Dhaka. Although I'm not visible today, I'll still provide a visual description of myself. I'm a brown-skinned woman with shoulder-length black wavy hair. I have a round face and dark eyes. I'm wearing an olive-colored top, and my hair is tied up today. Just to let anyone know who needs visual descriptions, all of my colleagues who are speaking today will also be providing descriptions of themselves. And we have shared the PowerPoint via Teams, so it should be accessible by any screen reader software that's being used. After this webinar, a full recording, text transcript, and written FAQs will be published on our website, and everyone who has attended this webinar today will be receiving a recording in due course. But before we start with the webinar, I'd like to invite my colleague Anika Bushra to outline some important information that makes this webinar more accessible and to explain the flow of the webinar today. Anika, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sadiapa. Good evening, everyone. I am Anika Bushra. I'm working as the Arts Program Coordinator at the British Council in Bangladesh. I am a brown-skinned woman in my late 20s. I'm wearing a lime green colored kameez, and I have shoulder-length black hair, which is untied now. For any attendees who require live captioning, you will be able to access this feature within the Microsoft Teams during this webinar today. Enabling live captions allow you to read the words that are spoken during calls and meetings in Microsoft Teams. If you would like to turn on live captions, please use this time to do so. I'll go step by step. Select More Actions, then to More Options button. Once you've done that, please select Turn on Live Captions, then to Live Captions button. Hopefully, you'll by now receive a notification showing your set language. Live captions will then be shown towards the bottom of the call screen and will only be visible to you. You can turn live captions off again at any time from More Actions and then to More Options button, the very first step. Thank you so much. We are aware that some people today may be listening to the webinar rather than watching this presentation. So all our speakers today will provide an audio description of themselves as part of their introductions. Sadiapa, may I request for the next slide, please? Now, some notes on housekeeping. We expect this webinar to last for about 1 hour. There will be a presentation for about 40 minutes, followed by question and answer. So that everyone can see and hear the speakers clearly, Microsoft Teams has automatically muted mics and turned off cameras for all attendees. So that the chat ping doesn't interrupt the webinar, if you think of any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question and answer function, Q&A function, and we will address them after the presentation. During the Q&A, if you want to ask a question verbally, please use the raise hand function. We will then unmute you and invite you to ask your question. This session will be recorded. If you do not wish to be recorded, please do keep your video off and microphone muted. After the webinar, a recording will be shared with you via email and on the British Council channels after this session. If you are interested in applying for this grant, you must have a working level of English or have support from someone with a working level of English. It can be a translator or an interpreter when needed to ensure smooth communication, particularly regarding the British Council guidelines and reporting requirements for this grant. The purpose of this webinar today is to talk through the current round of WOW Bangladesh grants for 2025 and 2026, so that you can feel more confident about whether this opportunity is a good match for your artistic or cultural practice, about how to apply, and about what information you need to include in your application. We will be recording the webinar today, as I've mentioned, and we'll share it on our webpage for future reference, where it will be available to everyone. Next slide, please. Now, what is WOW, Women of the World? The WOW Foundation exists to build, convene, and sustain a global movement that believes a gender-equal world is desirable, possible, and urgently required. WOW Women of the World was founded in the UK by Jude Kelly in 2010, when the first WOW Festival took place at the South Bank Centre in London. Since then, WOW festivals celebrating women and girls and taking a frank look at the obstacles they face have taken place across the globe, reaching more than 2 million people. Through festivals, events, school programs, and more, WOW challenges the belief that gender equality has already been achieved and hopes to join the dots between people, movement, and ideas to change the world. The British Council's work in South Asia regarding gender aims to deliver the following outcomes: raising awareness and changing perceptions. Women, girls, men, and boys positively change their perceptions and attitudes towards gender norms. Building capacity and skills, where arts organizations and creative professionals have increased skills and capacity to tackle gender issues. Voice and platforms. Women and girls are able to contribute to all aspects of life, including civic engagement and artistic expression. Finally, allies and partnerships, an increased number of organizations working together to promote gender equality. Thank you. I would now like to invite back my colleague Sadia Rahman back to share details about WOW Bangladesh 2025 and 2026 and the current open calls.
Thank you, Anika. And thank you everyone for being with us today. Just to let anyone who's arrived a couple of minutes late into the presentation know what we've covered. We've covered accessibility features and housekeeping. If anyone has accessibility needs and wants to understand how to access them, please drop us a note in the Q&A box and we will circle back to that information. And if we don't have any requests of that sort, I'm just going to move on now to talk about what the WOW Bangladesh grants are. So today you're going to hear from me and from other colleagues about a little bit more about WOW, about how to apply to the WOW Bangladesh grants, key information about the current open calls, and key dates to keep in mind. We're also going to try to make sure that there is time for your questions. I'm sure there are many, so please do share in the Q&A. My colleagues and I will be taking you through the information on the slides that we're sharing. And after the presentation, we will do our best to answer any questions that you have. If we don't get to your question from the chat, rather from the Q&A box, or because you've raised your hand, please don't worry. Send them to us by email. We'll answer by email, and we will also upload any core questions that we received today or by email to our FAQ document on our website from time to time. So you and also any other interested grantees who aren't attending today can access that information. So if you think of questions after the webinar is over even, you will be very welcome to email those to us at arts.bangladesh@britishcouncil.org. So back to the slide on screen. What are the WOW Bangladesh grants? This year, interested artists, cultural practitioners and collaboratives, as well as institutions, organizations and registered groups are invited to send us proposals that engage with the intricacies, counterarguments, and active questions of the local discursive traditions of how experience of society should not be determined by gender in Bangladesh. And to bring some focus to this huge set of possibilities and questions, we've selected some themes. These are film, moving image, and media aesthetics, hyperobject meets hyperobject, gender and the climate emergency, and the third theme, which we call STEAM, science, technology, arts, engineering, and maths. So we are looking to receive proposals that touch on at least one of these themes, if not more, in how they're put to us. Overall, we have two different types of grant available. One is called WOW Bangladesh Commissions 2025. These grants will support artists and cultural practitioners based in Bangladesh or in the UK to develop, produce, and present works of art, exhibitions, performances, screening programs, and other forms of artistic and cultural activity in Bangladesh in 2026. In this category, grants of up to £12,000 are available. For grantees based in Bangladesh, this will be in equivalent Bangladeshi Dhaka. A second type of grant that we have available, titled WOW Bangladesh Chapters 2026, are grants that will support arts organizations or registered groups of collaboratives that are based in Chattogram, Dhaka, Rajshahi and Sylhet in Bangladesh to host, curate, produce and present a day-long WOW Bangladesh chapter event on any date between the 1st of January and the 30th of August 2026. In this category, grants of up to £23,000 are available. And again, since grantees will be based in Bangladesh, this will be dispersed in equivalent Bangladeshi Dhaka. I hope everyone's had time to read the information that's on the screen. So I will move to a next slide where we see a table that articulates some of the information in a hopefully more digestible way. So both of these calls are open to all cultural disciplines, and we hope that they will encourage bold, collaborative, and publicly engaging proposals to explore gender and gender equality through exhibitions, performances, screenings, and discussions that will explore the intersection of gender and society and other meaningful substantive issues that artists and cultural practitioners feel need to be engaged with at the same time. One particular point that I would like to bring everyone's attention to is that we felt that it would be helpful to indicate the scale of the audience that we might be expecting for these two different kinds of grants. So you'll see that for the WOW Bangladesh commissions, which are for artists and cultural practitioners or unregistered collaboratives to produce events in Bangladesh, our expected audience for each of these events or programs that might be proposed is between 500 to 700 attendees. For the WOW Bangladesh chapter events, which are significantly larger in budget, and also we would expect to be significantly larger and more varied in scale, we are looking for proposals that will seek to have a minimum of 2,000 attendees. However, this is not one of the assessment criteria, as you'll see later, but this is to guide the prospective proposals as to the scale of the events and the scale of public engagement that we'll be seeking. So on this note, I would like to invite my colleague Emdadul Hoktopu to talk through the eligibility criteria for both of the WOW grants. Topu, over to you.
Hello everyone, my name is Imdadul Hoktopu, Arts Program Manager at the British Council Bangladesh, and I am based in Dhaka. I'm a brown-skinned man with medium-length dark hair and light facial hair, wearing a color shirt. While the WOW Bangladesh grants have a particular set of themes in this year, which I heard about earlier, and they are film moving image, media aesthetics, hyperobjects meets hyperobject, gender and the climate emergency, STEAM, science, technology, arts, engineer, and maths. On the matter on cultural discipline and art forms, this program is open to all kinds of proposals, cross-art projects and cross-disciplinary projects, such as arts with robotics, arts with geology, arts with botany. In addition to architecture, design, and fashion, creative technology, games, extended reality, immersive, mixed, augmented, and virtual reality, artificial intelligence. Film production proposal are not eligible. Literature, music, album production proposal are not eligible. Theater and dance. Visual, which includes photography, contemporary art, installations. Next slide, please. There are some eligibility criteria which could be met by applicants and by the proposals. You may have read this already in the open call details. Regarding applicants, we expect individuals and organizations to have necessary registration needed to comply with legal or tax provisions in the country in which they are based, whether Bangladesh or the UK. We welcome applicants from both new and returning applicants. The capacity to produce present work in Bangladesh on gender in society before 30 August 2026 is central to this grant. Regarding proposals, proposal to produce music album or film are not eligible. Proposal to conduct research visit or develop idea that are not be produced and presented in Bangladesh are not eligible. The proposal's activity timeline should end before 30 August 2026. Now I would like to invite my colleague Sadia Rahman again to talk about the more detail on the specific criteria for each of the two grants separately.
Thank you, Topu, for taking us through the eligibility criteria and the different art forms and cross-art form possibilities that we are open to hearing about. Let's talk now about the WOW Bangladesh Commission's grants. So there's a brief bit of information on screen, and I will discuss in slightly more detail what is involved. So for this grant, the British Council is inviting individual artists, individual cultural practitioners, and arts collaboratives, including unregistered arts collaboratives, based in Bangladesh or in the UK, so there are 2 countries that applicants can be based in, to apply for a grant that will allow the applicants to develop, produce, and present new works of art, physical exhibitions, live performances, screening programs, or any kind of public programming. This could also be an artist book or a publication project, but public-facing programming in the context of WOW Bangladesh in 2026. As I mentioned earlier, grants of up to £12,000 are available, and these will be for work that will be produced and presented anywhere in Bangladesh. So there isn't a specific location or type of location that we have in mind with commissions. And our expectation is that, as we've mentioned earlier, the production and presentation should take place before the 30th of August, 2026. As we've already mentioned, we are looking for proposals that will engage with at least one, if not more, of this year's themes. I'll repeat them very quickly, although they've been mentioned a couple of times already. Theme 1 is film, moving image, and media aesthetics. Theme 2 is hyperobject meets hyperobject, gender and the climate emergency. And theme 3 is STEAM, science, technology, arts, engineering, and maths. Where possible, we think that WOW commissions may be invited to participate in WOW chapter events, which would be the other group of grantees. However, that would be decided by the producers and curators who participate in those grants. If you are applying for the WOW Bangladesh Commission's grants, please do take care to include in your application demonstrations of your track record of producing and presenting work on this subject and at this scale in the past, in addition to clearly describing the work that you want to propose and how you plan to deliver it within the time and the budget available. Now, on to the WOW Bangladesh Chapters grants. For this grant, the British Council is inviting expressions of interest as opposed to applications. And we're inviting these EOIs from institutions, organizations, and registered groups of artists and cultural practitioners who are based specifically in the cities of Chattogram, Dhaka, Rajshahi, or Sylhet. These grants will support these registered organizations or institutions to host, curate, produce, and present a day-long WOW Bangladesh chapter event in any one of these cities on any date between the 1st of January and the 30th of August 2026. For this grant, grants of up to £23,000 in equivalent local currency are available. Again, we will be looking for proposals that will engage substantively with one or more of this year's themes. If you and your organization are planning to apply for this grant, we will be very interested to understand what your programming approach will be, how you might incorporate the work of artists or cultural practitioners who will be receiving the WOW Bangladesh Commission's grants, and also the work of any other recent British Council grantees who have work that is of interest to you. I should note, though, that your program does not have to be restricted to British Council grantees and can include anyone who you're aware of who is doing work that's relevant to the themes and you feel are relevant to the issue at hand and the local area and community that you propose to do the work in. If you are applying for this grant, please take care to include in your application demonstrations of you and your team's track record of producing and presenting work on this subject and at this scale, in addition to clearly describing the work that you want to propose and how you will deliver it within the time and budget available. Before completing your EOI, please do also visit the WOW Foundation's website to understand the components of WOW events, or WOW formats, as they are called. For a WOW chapter event, we will expect the inclusion of at least these 4 formats, which are the WOW Thinking, the WOW Discussion event, WOW Bites, which are very short form, quite exciting events, and pop-up performances or exhibitions. You are welcome to include further design elements of your own and to incorporate more WOW formats of your choosing as well. You will find the links to the WOW Foundation's website with further information about the formats in our open call guidance, and we can share them in the chat as well if requested to do so in the Q&A. In your EOI, please also take time to describe how you will ensure audience engagement at scale while adhering to British Council's safeguarding policies, which are available on our website, as well as ensuring equality, diversity, and inclusion for the organizing team, for invited participants to your program, and for attendees of the event. I'd now like to touch very briefly on the criteria that the selection panel will use to assess the applications that we receive. These are described in full in the open call details and in the guidance note, which you may have read already online. I won't share the full details because they are quite wordy, but please do take care to read the assessment criteria carefully as you are completing your application form in the case of a WOW Commissions grant, or the EOI form in the case of WOW Bangladesh Chapters grant. In particular, I suggest that you take particular care to look at the details and the weightings as they differ between the two grant opportunities. Rather than discussing these in general, I think that it might be more constructive for this group if we work through any specific questions that you have in the Q&A session after this presentation. On this slide, you can see the calendar for the WOW Bangladesh grants. It shows the key milestones between now and the deadline for applications and expressions of interest for both grants, which is November the 16th, 2025, in 10 days. The calendar also lists the key milestones that will be applicable to the selected projects after the assessment is complete. Before applying, please consider carefully whether you and your teams will be available to complete your proposals within this time frame. We have tried to keep the application process very simple. Each of the two grants have their own application form or expression of interest form that should please be completed in full. Both grants have the same budget and activity plan template. This is an Excel file with two tabs. One tab is for the budget, and there's a second tab for the activity plan. This should also be completed in full. Both of these files are available as downloads on our website. If you're not able to find them, please do let us know, and we will send the appropriate links to you again. After your application form or EOI form is completed and budget and activity plan template are completed, please save the forms and the Excel template as PDF files and email them to us before the application deadline. The email address to which you should send the application and the budget template is, again, arts.bangladesh@britishcouncil.org. Please be sure to follow the instructions provided regarding the subject line of your email to us. They're there on screen right now. They're also included in the open call guidance. Applications that arrive incomplete or after the deadline will unfortunately not be considered for the grant. And as another reminder, the deadline for applications is 11:59 p.m., which is at night, Bangladesh time, on the 16th of November, 2025. So with that, we now arrive at the best part of the webinar, where I and my team get to hear from you. So I hope that we have lots of questions in the chat. And if anyone would like to verbally ask their question, as Annika said at the outset, please use the raise hand function and we will unmute you so you can ask your question of us. Thank you, everyone. Wasika, as I'm sharing my screen, I'm not able to see the Q&A box.
Hi.
Hi,
Can you hear
Sadyapa.
me?
So we have two questions in the Q&A box. There's the first question from Saika. She is a little bit confused which category she can apply for. She is an independent practitioner, and also she owns a company which turns art into products. So she's a bit confused which one she should apply for.
Thank you, Wasika, and thank you for the question, Saika. I think that it sounds as if either as an independent practitioner or as a registered organization at that level, you have two grants that potentially you could apply for. So for you, I think the key decision is to decide what kind of project it is that you want to do. If you want to work on an art commission or an exhibition commission, a publication commission, then there is a specific grant for that, which is the WOW Bangladesh Commissions grant, which is geared towards individuals or unregistered groups. If you want to deliver a WOW chapter event, which is only open to registered organizations and groups, then you wouldn't be eligible to apply for that as an individual practitioner, but you would be eligible to apply for that as part of a team that's representing your organization. So from what I've understood from the question that you've asked, it is very much your decision. And perhaps a way of making that decision will be to think very deeply about through what format you would like to engage with the subject of gender equality and the themes that we've set out. So do you want to work on a particular project that you're producing, curating and presenting? Or do you want to work on a larger event that involves a number of projects and a large audience? I hope that was a helpful response. If I haven't understood your question, I invite you to unmute yourself and ask, or request the team to unmute you so you can ask, or perhaps reiterate the question in slightly different language in the Q&A box. Thank you, Saika.
Thank you, Sadyapa. There are a few more questions, and two people have raised their hands. Should we take the hands first?
Maybe it's a good idea to take the written questions first because they may
Sure.
have come through earlier. Thank you.
Sure. So another question that came on the chat was they have asked if they can work with their team, or does it have to be individual all along? Or can we apply as a collaborative partner for the WOW Bangladesh Commission?
That's a really good question. Thank you. There's no prohibition to working with a team of people. Certainly for any project, any artistic project or cultural project of any scale, there would ordinarily be a number of people involved. So there's no issue with having a team of people, a team of peers and equals and collaborators working together. Rather, we would encourage it. However, this is an opportunity that is open for individuals who wish to work alone as well. There are some people who work in that way at a large scale, and we also want to make sure that we're open to their practices. I hope I've been able to answer your question. Wasika, do you feel that I've interpreted the question fully?
Yes,
Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
So another question that we have from Lubna Appa is that can the WOW chapter, a day-long event, be a culmination of a series of events?
We're certainly open to that. We're absolutely open to the WOW chapter being a culmination of a series of events. And in that context, we would also be open to some of those events perhaps being online as well, if that is what's being proposed. We're also open to WOW chapter events lasting for longer than one day if we receive a strong proposal that suggests it and articulates how that would be delivered and achieved coherently, we've requested 1 day as a minimum. But yes, certainly a chapter event that culminates after a series of activity, or a chapter event that initiates something, either of these approaches are perfectly acceptable to us. We're very open to what artists and cultural practitioners want to propose. Thank you, Lovina, for the question.
Thank you, Sadia. So there are a couple of more questions. One is, can our project be featured at other exhibitions after the WOW exhibition is over?
If it's invited, I mean, I don't know why I'm saying if it's invited. Yes, there's no reason why not.
Thank you, Sadia. So we have another question from Katrina. She has asked, can we apply with already existing projects that are in early stage development? Yeah.
Thank you, Wasika, and thank you, Katerina, for the question. A project that is an early stage of development, but hasn't been presented previously, yes, certainly would be eligible. A project that has previously been presented, particularly if it's previously been presented in Bangladesh, it wouldn't be ineligible, but the proposal document, naturally would need to make a strong case for the reasons for which it's urgent to restage it. And there may be very valid reasons to restage it, but it would be helpful if those were set out for the assessment team so that we can understand them. So the answer is yes.
Thank you, Sadia. So we have 2 questions about film. I'll try to put them together for you. So the first one is asking for clarification on the criteria of film, because they were not clear if they can't apply for film production. The second question was if they can apply for film's post-production under the commissions.
So if I've understood correctly, the question is in context of someone working on a film project,
yes,
and seeking funds to complete a film project. Is that correct?
Yes.
So in general, the British Council isn't able to finance film because we're not a film finance corporation. So, and I'm saying in general because there are certain circumstances in which, for example, in context of contemporary art, or if it's what used to be called artist moving image, we are able to support artworks that can be interpreted as film works as well. But generally, film that's being produced to be seen in theatres and go to film festivals isn't an area of work the British Council is able to engage in. It's something that more the British Film Institute would do in context of the UK. So it's a question that could have depending on the nuance of the particular context, it could have several different versions of that answer, but broadly, this isn't a kind of work that the British Council can do. I think the second thing to understand would be in context of these particular grant opportunities, which are very geared towards public exhibition, public presentation, and public engagement, would be, is there a distribution and exhibition component to this question? I mean, we've been asked about post-production, but in the case of the film value chain, there are a number of steps that have to occur after post-production is completed in order for films to reach audiences. And the WOW Bangladesh program is very audience-focused. So all of the outcomes are oriented towards work by artists and cultural practitioners being put into communities and in front of audiences, and that too by the 30th of August 2026. So to the group or the individual who had this question about whether post-production would be something that we would consider in context of this award, whether that post-production is followed on by a distribution and exhibition component to the proposal would also be something that our assessment committee would need to look at, because that is a key criteria for these two awards.
Thank you, Sadia. So there was a follow-up question about eligibility for film. Can film festivals apply for the WOW chapters?
Film festivals are not ineligible to apply for WOW chapters. That having been said, one thing to address in the application would be how the film festival proposes to deliver a discrete event as a WOW chapter in context of a film festival, which is also a discrete event. So it's not ineligible, but we would want to understand very clearly how it specifically is a WOW chapter, which would be distinct from, and more fully formed as an event than, for example, the screening program that looks at absolutely, for example, climate storytelling, and how that intersects with gender perspectives in, recently produced Bangladeshi cinema, for example, right? That could absolutely be a festival focus program. But how to transform that kind of concept into a WOW chapter event that might be centered on film. And this having also brings me back to when I was speaking about the WOW chapter grants and how WOW chapters are structured, where there's a think-in component, which is kind of WOW's equivalent of a plenary session, where the focus is on gender equality rather than in any particular art form. Also WOW Bites, where artists and women and girls in general talk, in entertaining or engaging or difficult ways about their personal experiences, but also their artistic and cultural experiences. How would those events be brought together in context of a film festival? I mean, I think certainly that could be very compelling if we receive a proposal that addresses all of those questions. But I feel that there are lots of questions to be addressed in how a film festival would take on the WOW chapter formats and really make something with it. But it's not ineligible.
Thank you, Abba. There was a part of a question about the budget. When they're submitting the budget for the application, should they include VAT and tax?
In the case of grants in Bangladesh, VAT is not applicable to grants. This having been said, in the case of organizations, because Bangladesh VAT legislation, I think every country's VAT legislation is actually very complicated. The best person in the organization context to advise on how VAT should be addressed will be the accountant who addresses VAT for the applying organization or group. But broadly speaking, in my understanding, or the understanding I've been given by our tax colleagues at the British Council, is that VAT is not levied on grants and scholarships and stipends in Bangladesh.
Thank you, Abba. So we have 2 raised hands.
Brilliant.
Let's take those questions first, and then we shall get back to the other questions in the chat as well.
Thank you.
So
I can see one raised hand. Shall I just, I don't know how to tell who has raised their hand first.
So, somebody who has labeled themselves as PSS has their hands up first. If they can unmute themselves and ask the question, that would be helpful.
Hi, this is Parsa. Thank you for your presentation.
Hi,
I
Parsa.
have two questions actually. One is a follow-up to the film question. I think you explained it well, Sadia, but I still have a follow-up question, which is, can you give an example of the kinds of film or new media projects would be eligible if production is not? So for example, if I were to make a new media or propose a new media project for exhibition, but that would, I mean, if I understand the production part, but let's say I'm putting something together with found footage, but then that would also require editing, and that is considered production, no, even if it's meant for an exhibition. So I'm just like asking a follow-up question on if you have examples of what would be eligible in terms of film and moving images. So that's the first question. And the second one is regarding individual commissions versus collective or curatorial projects. I think you also answered that. But if somebody is applying as an individual, can they propose to use like part of the grant for a curatorial intervention, or it has to be just one project, or can there be parts under one project?
Thanks, Barsa. I'll take the second question first, and then come back to the film question follow-up, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Right. So, for these grants, we want to be really open to formats that artists propose rather than, so, excuse me in advance if I sound very vague or non-committal. My intention is not to be vague or non-committal. My intention is not to circumscribe or foreclose any ideas, particularly around form and medium that artists or cultural practitioners may wish to propose. Because sometimes really locking something down with a piece of terminology can be very restrictive, and may lead to the assumption that, okay, we're open to this or that, but we're not open to some new perspective that an artist was bringing that perhaps but the British Council doesn't have a language for us yet. So with regard to propositions that are coming, whether from organizations for the WOW chapters or from artists, cultural practitioners, collaboratives, I would include curators and practitioners, but we can speak about curators specifically. If there is a coherent proposal that proposes to produce a new work, such as a new media work, also to produce an exhibition that may or may not incorporate that particular new media work, but is engaging with the themes and also the overall subject and focus of WOW in general, that would certainly be eligible. And the way in which we would assess it would be by applying the assessment criteria that we've published. We wouldn't look at it differently, but we would need to be helped to understand it. If it is proposing something new that we haven't seen before, we'd want to be sure that we were understanding what's being proposed. But there isn't a particular stricture that this can be done and that can't be. Does that answer the second question?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for it. And with regard to the film question follow-up, I would say, firstly, unless we have lots of questions about film, new media, and moving image, I'm a bit worried about spending a lot of time talking about film because there may be people from other art forms who aren't getting a lot out of it. But I would say the the area that the British Council doesn't work in that I was trying to articulate earlier, and again, I don't want to sort of like over-determine it because there are blurred lines, or there's nuance rather than blurred lines. But generally speaking, that's film in terms of film and cinema, and theatrical releases, or film festivals in terms of short film, feature-length film, documentary film, and production of that is something that in general the British Council isn't able to support production and often post-production of. If it's something that's geared towards the art circuit, or the new media circuit, which sometimes, or the creative technology circuit, which sometimes collides with the film festival circuit, as well as the art circuit, because it inhabits a different ecosystem. That is an area that we are able to work in. So if it's new media that's looking at galleries or media festivals or film festivals that have a separate media component, that kind of work we do have track record in supporting, and we are able to support. And also importantly, generally the British Film Institute isn't supporting it because they're geared towards theatrical release generally. So that's where the nuance comes in. What is the type of the work rather than what is the type of the technology? And what is the orbit of the work and the ambition of the work? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Sadyapa. So we have another question from Sophia Karim. Sophia, if you could kindly unmute and ask your question.
Hi, Sophia. Are you struggling to unmute? I think I can. I've just tried to allow your mic. Are you able to unmute now?
Hi, sorry.
No
I was
problem.
struggling to unmute. Sorry for that. Yes, I have a question regarding the 2025 grant. If we have to visit and do the exhibition or present the work in Bangladesh before the 30th of August 2026, and if we're submitting as a group, do all members of the group need to be at that event?
I think from our perspective, no, that's not necessary. I mean, if it is made necessary by the nature of the work that's being proposed, that would be a different thing.
Mhm.
But if the group proposing the work feels that this is a good way of working and it works for them, and it doesn't undermine the ambition or the effectiveness of the work in any way, then we wouldn't want to impose the condition that
Okay.
a huge amount of the project budget has to go for travel.
Yes.
Yes. So we would leave that decision to the applicants or the group
Okay.
expressing interest.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And thank you for Chipasa and Sophia for your patience while we responded to a lot of written questions while you had your hand raised.
Okay.
Wasika, I can see one more hand raised. Should we take that before we go back to questions in the Q&A box?
Sure, Pa. I think that would be helpful. Can you enable Monon's mic?
Yes, sure. I think I have. Monon, I hope you will now be able to unmute yourself. Monon, are you able to see whether you're able to unmute yourself? If it's not working for you, may I invite you to write your question into the Q&A? Osika, Monin
Shall
may be
we-
facing a technical difficulty, so
Yes.
shall we take a written question and then come back if it gets resolved?
Sure, Eva. Let's take another question from the Q&A. So we have a lot of questions about film. I'll just skip that and I'll take the question that has gender.
Okay. But we'll
if
come back to
project-
film,
We'll
right?
come.
We're not
Of
skipping
course,
it. Okay.
no, we're not
All right.
skipping. We're just
Okay.
prioritizing gender right now, and we'll
Gender.
come back to film because we have been talking about film a lot.
Yes.
Anyway,
Okay.
so the question that I'm taking right now is if project is connected with gender diverse community, not specifically for the women, is it applicable for the WOW Commission 2025?
This is a really great question. I'm so glad that we got asked this. So my suggestion would be, and my thoughts are, that if the proposing group feels that Women of the World is a constructive platform, then, we would certainly consider it eligible. And I'm saying that because, of course, it is in the name that it is Women of the World, and there is a focus on women and girls. And different organizations and different organizers in different countries approach it in different ways. I think not because of personal convictions or beliefs, but because, we have to respond to what's relevant to the communities that we're working with and who are working with us. And, questions about whether individual members and individual groups in gender diverse communities always find it useful to be aligned with women rather than men, or have to engage in this kind of gendered language. There is a question there that does get asked, and some groups feel that WOW is not, the right platform, or a platform that it makes sense for them to engage with. Similarly, and this is a completely different part of this discussion altogether, but I just share it because it may be of relevance tangentially. The question of, how do questions of patriarchal attitudes or patriarchal social structures, or the role of, the fact that maleness is also a gender, and how to bring ideas that come from men and boys into a platform like Women of the World. That's also potentially an interesting question that maybe someone or a group of people may or may not wish to take on in Bangladesh. So what I can say for the British Council is we're very open, because we feel that there are many conversations to be had, and there are many artists and cultural practitioners who are thinking deeply and making really insightful and interesting and moving or difficult work, considering many, many aspects of gender in many nuanced ways. And we do think that with the Women of the World structure and platform and format has something to offer, to facilitate bringing those works and those ideas and those conversations to wider publics. But any group that thinks that this is useful and constructive, we will be delighted to hear from. There's no question that we would say this gender group is eligible and this gender group is ineligible. That's not the case at all. And you'll also note that it's not part of the assessment criteria either. I hope I've been able to answer the question.
Thank you, Sadyapa. So I'll move on to a few more questions that are relevant to organizational registration.
Okay.
So the first question is, can we apply as Arts Collaborative for the WOW Bangladesh Commission, though we are a registered organization?
If it's a registered cooperative or collaborative, I think it probably would be eligible. I think
They
an
are
institute or
registered
an
as an
organization or a
organization.
business, right? What does that? So I think I think it might be most constructive if kindly the group that have asked this question, if they could put some specifics into an email, and then we can give a very, targeted answer that specifically services that situation. I think this is not a general question because it's specific to the way in which one particular organization has been set up, and maybe this isn't the forum to really go into, what company type or organization it is or what the tax status is. So maybe this is one that, if it's all right, we can address by email, one-to-one.
Sure. Thank you, Abba. So I will request Zakia Hoff to put more specific on your question and send us an email. So the next question about organization is, should the organization be registered under the art category? If it's a STEAM organization, can they apply?
The organization does not need to be registered under the art category. What we would be looking for in the assessment criteria would be more, is there a track record of working with the arts, of presenting work to the public, in arts and culture? Is there a track record of working at this kind of scale? Is there a track record of, engaging with conversations around gender in Bangladesh? And I think there are many ways to address that. If it's an organization that's engaged in science and technology, engineering and mathematics, but you're also collaborating with artists, or you're going to create a collaboration with artists who you have a pre-existing relationship with to make something that you've been wanting to work on for a while. I think those are details, that we would be very pleased to read about in the application or in the expression of interest. So we'd be very open to it, but we'd also want to understand how an artistic or a cultural project is going to be delivered to a public, from an organization that has maybe a very strong track record in science. We'd also want to be seeing, sort of some rigor and some capability being expressed in the context of art and culture as well. But not ineligible, not at all.
Thank you, Sadyapa. So going back to film,
Yes.
what are the examples of grants that are available for film if production proposals are not eligible?
I'm not quite sure I understand this question. If we think about, wow, sorry, Wasika, you go.
Sorry. So I think this person is asking for a few examples of what kind of grants they can actually apply for if they can't apply for production proposals.
Right. Would it be a good idea for us to request that this person ask that question to me directly now, if they're still on the call?
So the question came from Ahmed. Ahmed, do you want to come? Could you ask this question directly, or are you still in the chat?
If Ahmed raises their hand, we'll be able to see them. Okay, someone has raised their hand. I just need to find them.
I do see Ahmed in the chat, but I do not see them raising their hand. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm very sorry,
Hi.
Ahmed. I haven't quite understood your question.
So moving on to the next question. So I do see
Hello.
Kazi
Oh, hi.
raising
Is
their
this Ahmed?
hand. Should we take his question?
Yes, sure. Happy to.
Hi. Sorry for the confusion. I was logged in with my PC and at the same time with the mobile. So I'm Ahmed. It's Kazi Ahmed. So I was asking, I'm a filmmaker. How can I apply for this grant and participate in the WOW campaign? That was my question. If it is not for the production part, so
Right,
how can
right.
I apply?
Um,
Thank you.
I see. Well, thank you for clarifying, Ghazi Ahmed. Um, uh, I think the first step that might be very useful will be to just look at the open calls that are available for the two grants that are open right now and read the guidelines. They do provide a reasonable amount of detail about WOW, what it is, and what we're looking for. One grant is geared towards supporting new artistic work or exhibitions or new cultural work that's being produced by individuals or small groups of um, independent practitioners or groups of collaborators. And that's new work that's being presented either as a solo exhibition or as a screening program or a performance. Or a group exhibition or curatorial project. And it can also be a small series of these things. We're very, very open to what is being proposed to us. So, as a filmmaker, what you would want to propose in that line, which is geared towards placing artworks, new artworks, in front of publics in Bangladesh, we'd be very open to hearing about. It isn't a campaign in the sense that we don't have a message that we're trying to get out, like a marketing exercise. Um, the two grants are geared towards facilitating or supporting artistic and cultural ideas that are present, that are engaging with questions of gender and gender equality in contemporary Bangladesh. And this year we have some selected themes that we're inviting applicants to engage with as well in that context. And one of those themes is related to film. So hopefully that material will give you some things to think about or ideas to see to what extent it resonates with your practice. Another second grant opportunity is to essentially host an event that is at least one day long, if not longer, and that involves artistic and cultural activity and presentation. It also involves discursive activity and discursive activity that engages not only with art and culture, but also with gender in contemporary Bangladesh. And that is quite inclusive and involves different audiences. And those events have a specified geographical location that we're looking to work in. So those will be the cities of either Chattogram, Dhaka, Rajshahi, or Sylhet. And that is geared towards taking or programming or inviting works by artists and cultural practitioners, or perhaps commissioning or co-commissioning, and putting together an artistic and cultural program that also engages with this urgent question of gender and gender equality. So I'm sorry I don't have a very direct answer for how you can engage. I apologize. I'm not familiar with your practice or your interests, but I'm hopeful that the guideline documents and the open calls themselves will hopefully provide you and your collaborators with some things to think about with regard to WOW and whether either of these opportunities could work well for you.
Hello, Sadiapu. Sorry
Hi.
for the interruption. My mic is now working. I'm really, really sorry for that.
No, it's great. Hi, Monon. How are you?
I'm okay, but I have two quick question and two question like it's a situational question and it's very complicated. So that's why I wanted to ask you upfront. Thank you for being so kind and generous. So my first question is, so I had an exhibition in Germany 1 month back, yeah. So but it's not exhibited in Bangladesh or anywhere else. So there is a it's a visual art, and along with there's a publication. It's art book. Okay. So I want to extend this project. Like I want to make a new media artwork, but under this project, it's like a extension of the project. So in that case, can I submit this proposal in the category like individual commission?
Um, I I think I haven't heard anything that says to me that it doesn't meet the basic eligibility criteria. So I think the simple answer is I haven't heard you say anything just now that indicates that such an application wouldn't be eligible for consideration. And by the way, congratulations to you on your exhibition in Germany and the publication. It sounds fantastic. I hope that in any case we'll get to hear more about it and learn more about what you've done there and how it was received by audiences. It sounds brilliant. And I think that your idea to extend it sounds as if it would be eligible. But again, I encourage you to work through the guidelines if you haven't done so already, work through the open call. And if you want to have a specific conversation about it by email, you're very welcome to write to the Arts Bangladesh inbox and we'll get back to you.
Okay, so my second question, again for the same grant, the individual grant. So if I want to collaborate with a European artist, and our both of us actually, we are working on gender for a long time, and we want to collaborate. So in here, is it possible? One question, and the follow-up question is, if she has to come here, and the travel and everything, can I include in the budget, or is it eligible? Can we this grant can be used as like for travel cost and other stuff?
Thank you for the question. I think if one of the eligibility criteria for both of the grants is that the work be produced and presented in Bangladesh. And if that requires people to travel to Bangladesh, that obviously makes sense. It's it's a coherent approach. And if you and your collaborators feel that it works for you and for your project to spend some of your budget on international travel, that does not render your application ineligible. So you could do that. But again, I think hopefully you will find the guidelines and the assessment criteria and the eligibility criteria quite clear. And also the British Council does try to work transparently. So there are not any unpublished eligibility criteria or assessment criteria. Everything that we will use to assess the proposals is published.
Okay, and thank you, Sadhyapu. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Madam, for the question, and congratulations again on your recent success.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
Thank
I
you,
hear from
Madam,
Wasika. Sorry, I was just going to say that I hear from you that we have several more questions in the chat. We are over time, so I'm very thankful to everyone who's still here. If anyone who is still here has an urgent question that they want to ask, please feel free to raise your hand. And at this stage in the webinar, we'll prioritize raised hands. Other than that, I believe that some of the questions are quite general and might be of general interest. So Wasika will read those out. Some apparently are quite specific. And so since we are over time, what we will do is for those specific questions, we will come back and include them in that frequently asked questions document and upload them to the website. And we will let everyone who attended today know when that update happens so that the people who have asked those questions can receive their answers. Over to you, Wasika.
Thank you, Sadhyapu. So the next question we're taking is from Farzana. Can we partner with schools, universities, or local cultural centers as implementation partners? And if yes, is a formal MOU required at the time of application?
Thank you. That's a great question. The answer is yes, you can partner. And while we wouldn't expect a formal MOU, we would expect a clear demonstration that the partnership was agreed to in principle, so that it wasn't an idea, but it's something that actually has the foundation on which the idea can be actualized if the grant was awarded. So that can be in the form of a joint application in which the institution has worked with you. It could be in the form of an official signed letter. Again, we don't want to create a lot of additional bureaucracy for these applications, so we would leave the form of how you and your chosen partners want to demonstrate that to us as part of your application package. So a full MOU may not be required, but certainly a clear, formal undertaking that they are willing and able to work with you on this if the grant is awarded, would certainly support an application like that. I'd just like to add another point with regarding to working with schools, and this is also applicable to working with adults who are vulnerable or at risk in any way, is it would be quite important to address how you will approach safeguarding in your application. But the British Council does have a safeguarding policy, which is online and can be referenced if that's useful to you. But in the case of, in particular, working in schools with minors, the safeguarding approach would be something that we would look at very, very carefully. And we've also mentioned that in our assessment criteria. So that's just an additional note for you.
Thank you so much, Sadyapa. So we have two raised hands. Shall we move on to taking their questions?
Yes, that's great.
So, Jannatul Firdaus, I have enabled your mic. Could you kindly unmute yourself and ask your question? Jannatul Firdaus, can you hear us? Probably they're having difficulty with their microphone. Shall we move on to the next raised hand from Qazi Fahimanaz?
Please.
Qazi Fahimanaz, could you kindly unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hello. Sorry. At first, I couldn't unmute my mic. My name is Jannatul Firdaus. Hello.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Jannatul Firdaus.
Yeah, I have a question. I related music. Since the guideline says music, I mean album production proposals are not eligible. So could you clarify what kind of music performances or presentation formats are preferred?
We don't have a preference for presentation format. We're simply not, and we're not a finance corporation, and so we're not able to fund the production of albums for music. But any other kind of public-facing activity relating to music would be eligible for this grant.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Shall we move on to Kazi Fahima Naz? Kazi Fahima Naz, could you unmute yourself?
Hello, good evening. I'm Kazi Faimanas. I'm an architect.
Hi,
Hello,
good
do you hear me?
evening. Welcome.
Hi, I'm an architect. Actually, I own an architectural consultancy firm, Archdoers. I just want to know how would I apply for a funding for an architectural project?
Is this question in context of the two grants that we're discussing today, or is it a separate question?
No, I saw that you have you are what's allowing architects to join this webinar. That's why I applied. I joined.
Oh.
I registered for it.
I see. Okay, brilliant. So I'm not sure if you have been with us for the entire webinar, but we are discussing two specific grant opportunities that the British Council currently has open to practitioners and organizations in Bangladesh. One of the grants is also open to practitioners based in the UK. And they are for artistic and cultural projects that will be public facing and produced for the public by 30th of August 2026. And architecture is one of the eligible art forms, as are fashion and design, music. A lot of people have questions about film. So there are several different art forms that we're open to, and we're also open to cross art form project. So the other information that I should reiterate and share with you is that the broad focus of the grants that we're discussing today is gender and gender equality in contemporary Bangladesh. And there are some thematic focus areas. One of them is looking at film and media and aesthetics. Another is looking at the intersection between gender and the climate emergency, gender experience and the climate emergency experience. And another theme is looking at science, technology, arts, engineering, and mathematics, and the gender perspective of that, because gender is the overarching concern for these two grants. So what I would encourage you to do is to have a look at the literature related to the grants. There's an open call document, there's a guidance document. And if you feel that it's of relevance to your practice and the artistic project that you are wanting to propose, then I do encourage you to apply. We will be delighted to receive applications from architects.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you. The grant application deadline is in 10 days.
Okay, so thank you so much for your suggestions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll move on to the next question in the chat. Are small-scale research study or proposals eligible under the WOW Commission grant if the study is conducted and findings are presented in Bangladesh before August 30?
Thank you for the question. I think that whether the assessment committee ultimately finds such an application or proposition to be eligible for full consideration will really depend on what the public-facing output or how the public-facing output of the research is framed. If it's framed in terms of being an artistic production or a cultural production, for example, I don't know if, and I mean, for example, a work that you may have seen at a public exhibition that took place in Dhaka, I want to say about 10 years ago in context of Dhaka Art Summit, by Forensic Architecture, where one of the then participants in the UK-based architecture and Contemporary Art Collaborative Forensic Architecture had looked at arsenicosis in the Barin Tract in Bangladesh. And so they'd used remote sensing, they'd used satellite imaging they'd used, I don't know if you're familiar with NVDI technology. Anyway, I'm going into too much detail, where they had done, they had used a number of digital and highly scientific technical means to collect data on the presence of arsenic in the water supply. They'd also done field research, and they'd also taken photographs of people who are affected by arsenicosis. But they brought all of this work together not into a scientific paper or a conference or a symposium, but they created essentially a contemporary art installation in the context of Dhaka Art Summit. So I'm not suggesting that your group needs to present your work in that way or think about your work in that way. But I think for the assessment committee, the question would less be, is this a research initiative? And it would be more, is the outcome that's being presented to the public an artistic outcome or a cultural outcome that is both furthering artistic and cultural ambitions, as well as contributing to contemporary discourse on gender or contemporary, the understanding of contemporary experiences of gender. I hope I've been able to answer your question.
Thank you, Sadyapa. Another question that we had was, if the project I'm thinking of has lighting requirements, such as dark spaces and special lighting, is that all right?
Yes.
Thank you. So this will be the last question for this session, I guess. For the EDI and inclusion section, what specific evidence strengthens an application? There are a few more follow-up to this, but I wanted to highlight the EDI, and we can answer the rest of the follow-up questions later through emails or in writing.
Sure. I think it might be useful for actually everyone who's on this call to have a look at the British Council's Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Policy, just because it will give some guidelines around what the British Council means when we talk about EDI and what we're including in it. I would suggest that for all of the people who are thinking about applying for these grants, to think about, in the context of the work that you're proposing, what are those opportunities to work in a way that fosters equality, diversity, and inclusion, whether that's within the production team itself, whether it's with people who you're inviting to collaborate with you or to share their work through the platform that you're facilitating, or whether it's for audiences. And I think that particularly with artistic projects, there may be many different formats. There are many different ways in which risks of being non-inclusive or non-equitable or non-diverse may occur. So there'll be a lot of variation, I expect. So my recommendation would be to look at how the British Council thinks about equality, diversity, and inclusion, and think about your own project ideas and see where the opportunities are or where the risks are that can be addressed by having a well-considered approach to EDI for the work that you propose. I hope I've been able to answer the question, and if we have, and if necessary, we can drop that link to our EDI policy in the frequently asked questions as well, so everyone can access it easily.
Thank you, Sadyapa. So these are the questions that we wanted to take this evening.
Well, thank you, Asika, for moderating very effectively, and thank you to all of the attendees who are still here and listening. We really appreciate your interest. I've just put up on screen. If you've got more questions, please do review the online guidance or email us directly at arts.bangladesh@britishcouncil.org. We're so pleased to have had such solid attendance and so many questions today. Thank you so much for your engagement, and we look forward to hearing from all of you before the open call closes, and we're really looking forward to reading your proposals. Thank you.